Hey there and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome to my channel and thank you so much for being here. If you're new, make sure you subscribe before you leave, and if you're a returning subscriber, if you haven't already, hit that little bell down below for notifications on when I put up new videos. I upload twice a week. Okay, so I just had a whole intro recorded and thank God I went back to look because it was all blurry and I have enough time to re-record that. All that to say, I'm going to talk about something today that I have been wanting to talk about for probably the last 2 months. I feel like I have a lot of feelings about it. There's a lot of feelings I have about the idea of self-worth and self-confidence and that phrase that we hear so many times, a lot of phrases that we hear a lot of times, but the big one is you can't love somebody else until you love yourself. And I just want to have a very off the cuff conversation with you guys. I just finished recording a haul. I didn't really have the intention to sit down and record this, but something told me somebody needed to hear it and that I needed to get it off my chest, and I'm just trying to honor that. So why don't you grab a snack, get comfortable. I'm gonna go put some socks on because my feet are cold, and let's get started. Okay, so first and foremost, I do apologize if the lighting starts to get really bad in this video. It is sundown right now, but I really feel like I need to sit here and record this video. And I wanna talk about something that I have been hearing a lot about, and things that I guess have just kind of come from being in therapy for the last 2 months and really kind of addressing a lot of big things about myself. And also just the fact that I have this whole career in which I talk about self-confidence and self-worth, and then not having this other side of me that's still very much struggling and still very much learning what that means for me beyond loving my body. And this is something that I've said multiple times and I've had shared in so many different ways, that once you begin to love your body, that's not the end. I think for me, I really wish that was the end. In my youth, that is where a lot of my insecurity stemmed from. I will always wish that I could be a thin person, navigate this world as a thin person, that life would be so much easier for me, that I would have more opportunities, that I would have, love come into my life so much easier, that I would just have an abundance of all these things that I always felt that I really wanted. But then living my life as a fat person, having the experiences that I did, and not even just necessarily as a fat person, but having the upbringing that I did, the experiences that I did, having a lot of emotional abuse in my life, physical abuse, sexual abuse in my life, I have developed might not even be the right word. I have had all of these different thoughts about my worth and my self-worth. And you want to know what I learned in therapy? I have an anxious attachment style. But anxious attachment is somebody who feels when somebody starts pulling away, when somebody starts removing themselves from a situation, your partner or whatever, instead of maybe pulling away to protect yourself, you anxiously become attached. And let me actually read a blurb for you because I just feel like this is something that I want to share. And I also just want to quickly say, I'm no doctor. I am just somebody who's done my own research and learned my own things. And so if you feel like this is you, if you feel like this is something that maybe you struggle with, definitely talk to your therapist about it. Adults with anxious, preoccupied attachment style might think highly of others, but often suffer with low self-esteem. These individuals are sensitive and attuned to their partner's needs, but often insecure and anxious about their own worth in a relationship. If the loved ones reject them or fails to respond to their needs, they might blame themselves or label themselves as not being worthy of love. Adults with anxious attachment need constant reassurance that they are loved and cared about and that they are worthy and good enough. This comes from a strong fear of abandonment. Learning that about myself was this aha moment, oh my God, there's finally a name for what I sometimes or often feel in relationships, and I can finally accept that even though I've done all of this work on loving my body, on addressing areas of self-love that maybe 15-year-old me never would have thought I'd ever address in my life, there's still so much that I don't know and so much that I need to work on. And having this just pop up put so many pieces together and also made me feel super empowered. I'm gonna leave a link to this article because there are different types of attachment styles. All this to say is that I want to talk about self-worth, and I want to talk about the things that maybe people don't really like to talk about, and I want to put myself out there in a way that maybe people don't often want to put themselves out there in a way. I've just told you a pretty intense thing about myself, and that I feel those things in relationships. And I think for a while I felt I felt like there was something wrong with me. I felt like I was at the mercy of these feelings, and realizing that has just kind of allowed me to be a little bit more kind to myself, because that comes from a part of my life and experiences in my life that I had no control over. And if you're watching this and you're realizing you're either of those things, you're the avoidant or the anxiously attached, we had no choice what happened to us in our lives. We had no choice with the situations that we experienced, the families we were born into, and we did what we did as children and maybe even teenagers or whenever we experienced these things to survive. And it came from having a therapist just straight up tell me that I had no control over my childhood, that I had no control over the things that happened to me, and that I need to stop blaming myself for the ways that I respond to things. It doesn't mean that I can't change it. It doesn't mean that I can't learn about what I can do to better navigate these situations and how I can better communicate what's going on with me. It just means that I am not to blame, because I felt in so many ways that it's my fault that I'm this way, and that when it happens to me or I feel like I need these things, I begin to just beat myself up for needing reassurance, for needing a partner to maybe go a little bit above and beyond, or taking what seems like a completely normal situation to somebody else and just running with it and thinking that it means the end of the world, thinking that it means that this person doesn't want anything to do with me anymore. And that those are things that now I know I'm dealing with, and that there's a name to it, gives me power where I felt I didn't have it before. And just this like feeling like I can do something about it, and I can address it, and I can begin to have healthier relationships for myself. Self-worth is so funny, and I think that it's so great that there is this whole community that I'm so lucky to be a part of and contribute my voice to, that allows us to address body positivity and the issues that we feel, the ways that our body can be looked at in society. But I think it's also really important to discuss the other things too. And again, I want to just say I'm no therapist. This is just a girl who feels so compelled to do research and to do all of this like inner work. And I feel compelled to share my story and let you guys know like the things that are coming up for me, because it's super important for me to share that with you. That body positivity really doesn't end with accepting your body. And I know for some of you that is going to be a hard pill to swallow. It was for me for a long time. I've been on and off to therapy since, I was a teenager, and I had been to therapy, after discovering my self-worth. And one thing I would always say to my therapist is, you don't need to talk to me about confidence. I have confidence in myself. That's not my issue here. But realizing that I still have to work on my confidence was a huge blow to my self-esteem, because what did it mean about me if I could be this confident person in who I physically am, but then at the same time still suffer with confidence in who I emotionally am and mentally am? And what does that mean for me in my journey? Does it mean that I'm false? Does it mean that I'm an imposter? And I already struggle with imposter syndrome pretty hard, but it was a really big wake-up call. And I think that that is something that has been both good and bad for me. The first thing I want to say is, if you're also in the same spot as me, if you're also feeling these same things, and one thing I found to be super helpful when I made my video on heartbreak, which, was received so kindly, I was just absolutely floored by the amount of support that came in. I think I maybe got like 2 negative comments, which I wasn't expecting. Is that so many people feel and felt the same way in their life, and experienced or shared that they felt very similar things to what I was explaining in the video. And at the time, it didn't really make sense to me. It was just, like a life story I had, that these things happened to me. I can't monitor my emotions, or I can't be that chill person or that person that I was. But realizing so many people deal with those same feelings made me realize that it's probably time that I start opening up about these things that I'm experiencing behind the scenes, and allowing it to not feel like such a dirty little secret, because it's something I've felt so ashamed of for so long and felt like I was just this really sensitive person. And maybe I am, maybe I do have sensitivities, but also at the same time, there is power in being vulnerable. And I want to be vulnerable with you guys. I really do. I'm trying not to cry in this video because I feel like I always just blubber like a baby, but it's that time of the month for me, so you guys excuse me. There's this phrase that I've been hearing since I was a little girl, and I'm sure you've heard it too. You can't love somebody else until you love yourself. You know, that premise of you're never gonna get love until you love yourself. And you know, I felt when I discovered confidence in my physical self that it was time for me to get the love that I deserved, the love that I really wanted. And then having this big moment, a big epiphany of like, oh my God, there's still so much work to be done. And even when the work is done, I'm gonna have new life experiences that create new stories that I've told myself. And then there's gonna be more work that's done. And then it just made me super resentful hearing that phrase, which I think has the best of intentions. And I do understand what the phrase is saying. But I think it's also really damaging to suggest that we can't be people with our own set of scars, people who still have to grow and learn and heal and not get the love that we deserve and not get love in general. Because I think love is so healing. And I think love can come into your life, love can leave your life, and it can impact you in such a way that it can send you and maybe even another person on a journey of self-awareness or self-discovery that allows you to grow. And I think love is healing. It's inherently healing. And that whatever stage of life you are in, you are always deserving of that. Every single person in this world is deserving of love. We are deserving of giving love. We are deserving of receiving love. And I want you to really take that in. Because myself included sometimes has an issue believing that I'm deserving of love. But I can't think of a single quality that I have that makes it so I'm not deserving of that. And I can't think of a single quality of a friend of mine who comes to me in whatever state of being they're in that makes them undeserving of love. Heck, I can't think of a single quality of people who I don't even like in this world that makes them undeserving of love. We all are inherently deserving of love, no matter what state we're in, no matter what moment we're in, no matter how much healing we have to go through, no matter how much confidence we still have to build. We are all deserving of that, no matter what. And I want you to really let that sink in. Self-worth is a really tricky thing. And I think that there are some good days and there are some bad days with me. Some days, some months seem worse than others. Some stretch of time seems worse than others. And I think that one thing too that we have to also look at when we're discovering self-worth and we're trying to find self-worth is maybe the parts of ourselves that we never really wanted to look at. I think for me, that was a big thing that came up for me after, my breakups, was realizing that I'm capable of having toxic qualities in myself. Sometimes it can be so easy to blame another person and look at the things that they did or didn't do for you and think, well, if they wanted to, they would, without acknowledging that every single person is their own unique set of circumstances with their own unique stories and their own unique responses to things, that we're all just trying to protect ourselves. We don't want to get hurt at the end of the day. We're all just trying to do what we need to do to avoid hurt, and we do that in very, very different ways. And I think that was a big one for me, and realizing that I only have control over myself, and I only have control over the choices that I make with myself. And how am I on this self-worth, self-love journey going to take the experiences that I've had and look inward and grow from that? One thing that I've found to be really helpful, and actually something I saw on TikTok, but I was having a particularly bad moment. Like, I was very much in my head. I was having a day where I just felt like I couldn't stop crying. I didn't want to get out of bed. This was probably like 2 weeks ago. And basically the concept was to go back into my camera roll exactly on this day a year ago and really put myself in that position and think about who I was in that moment, and think about the things that were bothering me, the things that felt like I couldn't get over, you know, those really deep-seated issues that I felt like was going to completely alter my life. And write a letter to my past self, be kind to my past self, and tell my past self that things were going to be okay. That those things that maybe I'm worrying about then and there aren't going to matter to me now. And then from that moment, after you've had this conversation with your past self, write a letter to your future self. Whatever you want to say and whatever you need to say. I did it, and it was so healing because I was able to tap into a part of myself that could be sympathetic and compassionate to who I am. And that could be sympathetic and compassionate to things that I've experienced and mistakes that I've made and things that I've done that I didn't think I could forgive myself for, or that at the time felt, you know, absolutely overwhelmingly hard to deal with. And it was a really interesting exercise, and it really allowed me to see that even the progress that I've made, the things that I've done, and how also it really showed me in the perspective of things that growth happens without you even realizing it. Growth happens whether you expect it to or not. And that sometimes all we need to do is acknowledge the growth that we've made. That's kind of why I want to make this video too, because I know that I'm having a lot of these different feelings and emotions, you know, in this current part of my life. I'm having these thoughts about maybe some of these feelings I'm gonna have never going away or never being able to come to terms with it. And I really want to like have documentation of the progress that I've made. And I want to look back at this video in a year from now and recognize and remember the things that I was going through. I don't want to share those things in great detail. I still want to remain private, you know, in some way. But it's really nice to have some sort of reminder of the progress that I've made. And I even feel that looking at videos that I made 2 months ago and thinking, my God, I've made so much progress, and how nice it is to see the progress that I've made. This again is a total off the cuff video, and I'm so cautious about giving advice because, like I said, I'm no professional. This is literally just me doing my own research and going to therapy and having the experiences that I feel. But I want you guys, if you feel comfortable, to take a moment to acknowledge your past self, and you just confront your past self and give empathy to your past self and give compassion to your past self and see what that feels like, and see how powerful it can be to treat yourself like a best friend or a loved one, and how that's something that we need to do. We need to find kindness for whatever part of life we're in, and understand that we're all just struggling. Not a single one of us really has it figured out. And even the people who look like they have it all together are still struggling to figure themselves out and to have self-love in the ways that maybe they thought that they should based off of where they're at in their self-love journey. All right, so I have to start wrapping up this video. The sun's going down. I'm running out of sunlight. But I just kind of want to end this video by saying that physical confidence, self-worth, self-love are all very different things, and they all look very different with where we're at in our life. And that if you're somebody who is processing all of these feelings, that it's okay. Wherever you are is okay. We're all learning. And that if you're even aware enough to know that you could address certain parts of who you are and address ways that you have been, that is huge. Self-awareness is huge, and pat yourself on the back for that. You know, there's people who go their whole life not realizing that they've contributed negativity to their own life or to others' lives. And I think it's a really amazing thing that you're able and capable of realizing that there's growth that needs to happen. And growth is always hard. There's a reason they say growing pains. Anyways, all this to say is that there's so many different things that I'm feeling about this whole body positive thing that I've started, and what I could do with the platform that I have, and what I need to say with the platform that I have, and also, you know, talking about something that's very important to me right now and letting you guys know the journey that I'm on, and also letting you know, like, I've made so much progress in ways that I never expected, and learned things that I never expected, and how freaking powerful that is. And that all comes from just realizing that there's still so much work to do. So much work to do. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video though. I really hope some of it makes sense in the editing process, because I would love to be able to share this with you guys and kind of hear what you guys are thinking about it as well, and what you want me to do if you want me to talk about it more, which I really hope you do, because I think that there's gonna be a lot of valuable things that I'm learning through this whole process that I'm going through in life. I will see you guys next time though. Don't forget you can find new videos from me every Wednesday and every Sunday, and new blog posts every Tuesday and every Thursday, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Doesn't matter if the snow is falling.